Did you know that the wealthiest black man connected to Washington, D.C. built a $20 billion empire that runs the CIA's technology infrastructure, and nobody knows him by name? But he's only one of the 8 richest black men from Washington we'll be looking at today. And trust me, each of these stories is wilder than the last. Let's count them down. Number 8. Earl W. Stafford, the defense mogul who spent $1 million on Obama's inauguration ceremony. Before we talk about the money, let's talk about what Earl Stafford did with it. Because the story of his most famous gesture tells you everything about the kind of wealth this list is built on. In January 2009, Barack Obama was about to be inaugurated as the 44th President of the United States. Stafford, a retired Air Force officer who had built and sold a defense technology company called Universal Systems and Technology, Inc. Unitech, for several $100 million, looked at the historic moment arriving and made a decision. He spent approximately $1 million of his own money to book hundreds of rooms at the JW Marriott on Pennsylvania Avenue. He then invited 300 disadvantaged individuals, people who would otherwise have watched from the cold margins of the celebration, and provided tuxedos, gowns, and meals, ensuring they experienced the inauguration of the first black president in the same comfort as Washington's most powerful guests. That single act of generosity remains one of the most celebrated moments in the history of D.C. black philanthropy, and it sits in a very specific tradition, using proximity to power not to hoard access but to open it. Unitech, which he founded in 1988 after retiring from the Air Force, specialized in training simulation and technology for the Department of Defense, the kind of niche technical capability that the DC federal ecosystem rewards with long-term contracts when the work is done right. Stafford did it right, grew the company into a regional powerhouse, sold it at a multiple that set him up for the rest of his life, and then spent that life doing what the inauguration story suggests he was always going to do: quiet power, deliberate generosity, maximum impact. Now let's look at how our next man created the largest black media company in the country while living forcefully inside in studio. Number 7. Alfred Liggins III created Urban One after selling his house. The origin story of Urban One, the most powerful black-owned media company in the United States, involves Cathy Hughes selling her house and car to finance the purchase of WOLAM in Washington, D.C., and then, because money was still short, moving into the station with her young son Alfred to live in the studio. That is not a metaphor for dedication. That is where they slept. Alfred Liggins III grew up in that studio, learned the economics of radio from the inside, and eventually took the company public in 1999, making Cathy Hughes the first black woman to chair a publicly traded company in American history. Under his leadership, Urban One has expanded into one of the most structurally significant media operations in the country. 70 radio stations, TV One, Clio TV, a digital portfolio that includes Bossip and Madame Noir, and a daily reach of 25 million black listeners across the nation. His net worth sits between $75 million and $172 million, largely tied to his approximately 23 million shares in the publicly traded company. The Hughes-Liggins family retains between 75% and 85% of voting control, meaning that for all the public market exposure, this remains a family-controlled operation making family-controlled decisions about what black media looks and sounds like for 250 million daily interactions. His recent controversy involves the Richmond, Virginia casino referendum, a bid to diversify Urban One into gaming that the company had invested significantly in building toward, only to see it fail at the ballot. The loss represented a meaningful strategic setback and a reminder that even the most dominant media empire is not immune to the specific unpredictabilities of local political will. In D.C., Urban One is not just a media company. It is the platform through which any politician, Democrat or Republican, who wants to reach the black electorate in the district and across the country must route their message. That is infrastructure-level influence, and it comes with a corresponding level of power that the balance sheet alone doesn't capture. Next up, let's meet a man who grew up in PG County and became one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. Number 6. Kevin Durant, Barsize, $598 million in career earnings and 100-plus startups. Kevin Durant is from Seat Pleasant in Prince George's County, Maryland, a suburb of D.C. that he has described as formative in every meaningful way. He became one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, signed a Nike lifetime deal worth over $300 million, a designation shared only with Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and accumulated projected career on-court earnings approaching $598 million. That's the part most people know. The part most people don't fully track is 35 Ventures, the venture capital operation he co-founded with Rich Kleeman, that now manages a portfolio of over 100 startups, including early positions in Coinbase, Robinhood, and Postmates. Many of these bets have been in fintech and media, sectors that are increasingly defining what the DC economic ecosystem produces beyond government contracting. His boardroom media platform produces content at the intersection of sports, business, and culture, and it has built a specific audience among DC's young Black professional class that is trying to understand how wealth actually gets built from the inside. His PG County commitment is not performed. His charity foundation has renovated basketball courts and funded education programs across the DC suburbs. In 2025, he acquired a 515-acre property in Prince George's County, the former site of Six Flags America, with plans to redevelop it into a multi-billion-dollar mixed-use destination. That is not an athlete writing a check to look good. That is an investor making a land bet on the community that made him, at a scale that requires serious capital and serious conviction. At 37, he recently signed a $90 million extension that proves the on-court value is still there. At 35V, the portfolio keeps compounding. The PG County chapter is still being written, and the scale of what it ends up as will depend on how the Six Flags redevelopment lands. But the direction of travel is unmistakable. And now, here's the crazy story of how the next man bought his way into DC's most powerful real estate market. Number 5. Don Peebles. Congressional page at 15, $6 billion. Real estate empire at 64. Don Peebles was born in Washington, D.C. in 1960. As a teenager, he worked as a congressional page, an experience that required waking up at 4:30 a.m. for 6 a.m. classes in the Library of Congress, before a full day of running documents and messages across Capitol Hill. He credits that discipline for everything that came after. And what came after is one of the most remarkable real estate careers in American history. He became a real estate appraiser in D.C. and eventually landed the chairmanship of the D.C. Board of Equalization and Review, giving him an insider's structural understanding of how property values get assigned, contested, and manipulated in one of the most politically complex real estate markets in the country. He was 24 when he took that chair. He leveraged that knowledge to launch the Peebles Corporation in 1983, focusing on public-private partnerships that converted underutilized urban assets into luxury hotels and residential developments. His net worth sits between $350 million and $700 million. His portfolio spans over 7 million square feet of developed and developing real estate valued at more than $6 billion across D.C., New York, Miami, Boston, and Los Angeles. His current D.C. pipeline includes projects that are reshaping neighborhoods in the same corridors where he once delivered congressional messages as a teenager. His political connections are as significant as his real estate credentials. He has been a top fundraiser and advisor for Democratic campaigns from Clinton to Obama to Harris. He is mentioned regularly as a potential candidate for public office himself, mayor of New York, positions within presidential administrations, which suggests a man whose ambitions have never been purely commercial. He's authored 2 best-selling business books. He sold his Coral Gables House of Trees estate for $13 million and maintains properties in the Hamptons and Wellington, Florida. The 4:30 a.m. congressional page became the man who builds the buildings. DC tends to produce exactly that kind of arc when the person in question refuses to treat their starting position as their permanent one. But while this sounds impeccable, here's how the next man started with a cable channel and ended up as the first Black billionaire in American history. Number 4. Robert L. Johnson, America's first Black billionaire who went through a $400 million divorce. Robert L. Johnson understood something about Washington, D.C. that most entrepreneurs of his generation didn't. Cable television was a regulated industry, which meant that understanding policy was as important as understanding content. He founded Black Entertainment Television in the district in 1980, grew it into the first Black-owned company listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and sold it to Viacom in 2001 for $3 billion, in the process becoming the first African-American billionaire in the history of the United States. That milestone was real, and it was historic. What followed was also real: a divorce from his co-founder and wife Sheila Johnson that resulted in a roughly $400 million settlement, which simultaneously created the first Black female billionaire in history and meaningfully contracted Robert's net worth from its 2001 peak. His current estimated wealth sits between $550 million and $650 million, substantial by any measure, and lower than where he was at the apex. His post-BET operation, the RLJ Companies, is headquartered in Bethesda, Maryland, and manages a diversified portfolio across RLJ Lodging Trust, a hotel REIT, automotive retail, and private equity. He was a former owner of the Charlotte Bobcats before selling to Michael Jordan. He sits on the boards of the Smithsonian, Lowe's, and KB Home. His DC presence is described as a command center, a home base where political elites across administrations have gathered for decades. He is one of the few people who can call for a meeting and have the attention of whatever power structure happens to be in the White House at the time. His philosophy, that culture is valuable but equity is king, has shaped how an entire generation of Black entrepreneurs thinks about the relationship between influence and ownership. The spicy layers are well documented: the $400 million settlement, a subsequent relationship with a woman 33 years his junior, and a net worth that contracts significantly when you compare 2001 to 2026. The arc is complex. The legacy is undeniable. Next up is a name who doesn't need any introduction, but the story of how he joined an NFL ownership group in the most politically powerful sports market in the country is truly insane. Number 3. Magic Johnson. The DC power move, and $1 million per week super yachts. A decade ago, putting Magic Johnson on a list of the wealthiest Black men in Washington, D.C. would have made no sense geographically. Then, in 2023, he joined the ownership group that purchased the Washington Commanders NFL franchise for a record $6.05 billion, and suddenly his D.C. chapter became one of the more consequential in the city's sports business history. His net worth is $1.5 billion, built across a career arc that began with the LA Lakers, absorbed a 1991 HIV diagnosis that most assumed would end him professionally, and produced instead one of the most studied entrepreneurial pivots in American sports history. He has invested in Starbucks franchises in underserved markets, movie theaters, real estate, Equitrust Life Insurance, which he owns a majority stake in, and sports franchises across multiple leagues. His exit from the Dodgers returned approximately 1,000% on his initial investment. The Sodexo Magic joint venture manages dining and facilities services for entities, including the Federal Reserve Bank. The Commanders' stake is the DC move, and it is strategic in ways that extend beyond franchise ownership. The team's stadium deal, wherever it eventually lands across DC, Maryland, or Virginia, will involve massive real estate development, infrastructure spending, and political negotiation. Johnson's presence in that ownership group puts him inside the most consequential sports and real estate conversation happening in the DMV right now. His lifestyle is exactly what $1.5 billion looks like when you've decided the Mediterranean is your summer living room. 6 weeks annually on super yachts at approximately $1 million per week. A number that sounds extravagant and, at his wealth level, represents about 4% of a single year's reasonable return on capital. The math of extreme wealth has its own logic. In DC, Magic Johnson is now a bridge between the world of elite sports and the halls of political power in a city where that bridge is worth considerably more than the franchise stake alone. And now, we're entering the top 2 category, and these 2 men are in a completely different wealth category. Number 2. Robert F. Smith, the most consequential Black fortune in DC history. Robert F. Smith's mother took him to the 1963 March on Washington as an infant. He cites that as foundational, a formative exposure to the intersection of economic equity and civil rights before he was old enough to understand what either word meant. He eventually came to understand both very well, and the result is a personal fortune estimated between $10 billion and $12 billion and an investment firm managing over $107 billion in assets. Vista Equity Partners, which Smith founded in 2000, focuses exclusively on enterprise software, the business-to-business tools that companies cannot function without, and has delivered approximately 31% annualized returns since inception. That number, sustained across 25 years, is not a claim. It is a track record that has made Vista one of the most sought-after private equity relationships in the world. The portfolio spans over 90 companies employing more than 100,000 people. His DC connection is both historic and contemporary. The $20 million gift to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in 2016 remains one of the largest individual donations in that institution's history. His Student Freedom Initiative targets the student debt crisis that disproportionately affects HBCU graduates, a constituency central to DC's Black professional class. He chairs Carnegie Hall. He has appeared at the World Economic Forum in Davos and carries the respect of global financial and political figures at a level that reflects genuine institutional standing, not celebrity proximity. Here's the complexity that belongs in the same paragraph. In 2020, Smith reached a $139 million non-prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice and the IRS over a tax investigation involving offshore accounts. He cooperated with investigators and paid. That chapter and the Morehouse Pledge, where he stood before a graduating class in 2019 and personally eliminated their entire student loan debt at a cost of approximately $34 million, exist in the same biography carried by the same man. The tension between those two facts is more interesting than either one alone. His Palm Beach estates total approximately $80 million in acquisition costs. His lifestyle includes serious art collecting and the kind of institutional participation that operates well above the level where net worth is the primary credential. DC's most influential Black household is not defined by a specific address in the district. It is defined by the scope of capital that moves through it. And now, we've arrived at the top spot. A man who once watched his car get repossessed from his office parking lot in the early days, and then built a $20 billion company that runs the NSA's technology infrastructure. Number 1, David Steward, $20 billion company with contracts from CIA. David Steward grew up in the segregated South, the son of a man who worked as a janitor and trash collector to support 7 children. He built worldwide technology from a small logistics company in 1990 into a $20 billion annual revenue enterprise that serves as one of the most critical technology partners the United States federal government has. Running cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity systems, and digital transformation solutions for the Department of Defense, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA. His personal net worth is estimated between $11.4 billion and $12.8 billion, making him the wealthiest Black American on the Forbes 400 list. He employs over 14,000 people. He maintains a majority ownership stake in a company that has never gone public, meaning every dollar of that valuation is his, managed privately with the discipline and control that comes from never letting Wall Street into the room. The early days story is the one that makes the arc tangible. In WWT's formative years, when the contracts were still uncertain and the cash flow was still unpredictable, Steward watched a repossession crew come to his office parking lot and take his car. He didn't have the resources to stop it. He watched it happen from his office window. The man who now runs technology infrastructure for the CIA once couldn't make a car payment, and both of those facts are true about the same person at different points in the same life. His DC foothold is systemic, rather than ceremonial. WWT's role in the Cyber Corridor, the network of federal agencies and military installations along the DC, Maryland, Virginia axis, means that a significant portion of its $20 billion in annual revenue is derived from contracts executed within the district's sphere of influence. His STEM City USA initiative is building the pipeline of diverse talent that WWT and the federal agencies it serves will need for the next generation of the digital infrastructure build-out. And then there's the cultural dimension, which is genuinely extraordinary. His son, David Steward II, founded Polarity LLC and Lion Forge Animation, the only Black-owned animation studio of its kind in the country, and the force behind Academy Award-winning animated content that is specifically designed to expand whose stories get told in the medium. His daughter Kimberly founded K-Period Media, the production company behind Manchester by the Sea, which won 2 Academy Awards in 2017. Think about what that family map represents simultaneously: the technological backbone of American federal defense, an Oscar-winning animation studio, and an Oscar-winning film production company, all operating under the same family identity, at the same time, rooted in a value system shaped by a man who grew up watching his father clean floors and take out trash so his children could have options that he didn't. And that's a wrap on the 8 richest black men from Washington, D.C. Which one of these money moguls impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And for more such interesting peeks into black wealth across America, take a look at Black Status.